the reality is that any successful plan is going to incorporate both incentives and disincentives as part of the process, and that we recognize that, but there's a couple things for the purposes of today's call. The first is that it takes a lot less effort and is usually much more productive to provide incentives wherever possible. It takes less work on the front end, and it takes significantly less work on the back end if we can get people to want to be in our system as opposed to trying to force them to be in our system. So the other element is that not everyone on the call today is in a position where they can go out and mandate usage of the system, right? Particularly, let's say, compensation. Well, there's probably only a handful of people on this call today that have the wherewithal to go in tomorrow in the office and say, people are either going to use this system or they're not, as an example, going to get paid commission for sales. That's a tough decision. It often spans lots of areas within the organization. So we'll focus most of our conversation through the rest of our hour on positive ways to get people into the system as opposed to imposing our will, although we are going to cover a few of those ideas as well. When it comes to incentives, any incentives around CRM should touch at least one of these four areas, either making our users' life easier, faster, helping them do their job better, or providing them with recognition, making them feel better about themselves, whether that's just something that's how they feel or whether that's actually something compensation related. Before we get into any specific examples of some of the incentives that we can incorporate into an environment to help people move more towards using the system on a regular basis, and I think it's critical to spend time on the UI element of it because it is ubiquitous. Everyone that's going to touch your CRM system is going to have to obviously interface through a graphics element, and it's something that not enough time, I think, is spent on. So we're going to spend a little bit of time up front talking about that. And we'll start with sort of outlining, we'll touch all four of these, starting with business process. So before any successful design, and understand, I know that there's all sorts of different people on this webinar today, so this isn't just for people that are thinking of designing a new environment. This also pertains to people that have existing CRM systems in place but might have some challenges. The business process piece, making sure that the system mirrors reality, is critical. So what are our current processes today? What is it that are doing, whether that's sales, marketing, or what have you? What goals do we have moving forward? So we know what we're doing today, but what do we want to change? Because this is a great opportunity for us to start to modify behavior or set new goals and monitor our ability to achieve those moving forward. What milestones do we measure as a business? And what stages do we track? So as an example, for a sales opportunity, what are our sales stages? How do things really change in the field as you move from an opportunity being identified to a RFP being issued or something along those lines? Who's involved and at what steps? And what information is it that's critical that be captured? And again, that also ties back to those milestones and stages. What information do we need overall, and when do we need it in the process? And lastly, what other systems are involved? Do we have a leads engine that we have to tie into? Do we have a pricing system, configurator, financials? What other pieces of the puzzle need to be put together to deliver value to the team? From a design perspective, we've developed a methodology that we call our JIT methodology, and it shares many similarities with the traditional just-in-time manufacturing process that you probably learned about in college or business school. And that, first of all, it has a fairly minimalist approach on the front end. So just as in the manufacturing world, a company wants to procure the absolute minimum amount of parts and materials needed for that manufacturing cycle, we want to ask or request information from our users only when it's necessary, and we only want to get that information that's really critical to us. We want it to be intuitive, meaning we want to organize that information in such a fashion that it makes sense. We want to use the right vernacular so people recognize what we're talking about. We want to group things in logical patterns so way that they think, so that they don't have to break a mental cycle when they go from one piece to the next and they're filling out forms. And we want to provide user-specific views so that as a marketing admin, I'm going to see an entirely different set of information than I would if I was an inside sales representative, than I would if I were a customer service representative. And this is important because it ties back pretty rapidly to that minimalist approach of design. I'm only going to see the things that are germane to me in my position. Now, we can provide options to let people see other things when they need it, but whenever we're requesting things, whenever we're putting responsibility back on the user, we're trying to maximize their time in the system. We also do a lot of event-driven data requests. So, as an example, a sales representative, when they move from pursuit in progress to RFP generated to RFP in progress, we have very different types of information that we're going to try to request. So if it was a sole source engagement, for instance, there's no reason to ask anybody about what RFP due dates exist or what types of formats we have to respond in. But as soon as I click over and find out it's no longer a sole source and now it is an RFP, I don't need to know all that information. And also conditional dependencies. So as people provide us answers, having the system be smart enough to either ask the right questions about the next steps or provide recommendations back based on the things that you've asked or the information you've entered. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. So once we've got a reasonable good design, we've got good feedback on what's happening in the real world and what we want to happen moving forward, moving into a prototyping environment as opposed to going straight to production, that first defining the right team of people to be involved, that we've got broad coverage, so we make sure we've captured their interests, effective storyboarding to pull out information that they might not have thought of on their own, doing a rapid prototyping exercise so that we keep people engaged while they're still thinking about our exercise, and then finally, before going to that production, bringing that same group back, doing the user review and acceptance so we're really clear, we've got it locked down, and when we go to deploying, we have a lot less change requests, which everyone on the call knows can be extremely costly and painful for those of us that have to go on and actually make those changes again. When it comes to deploying, developing a well thought out, carefully communicated plan to the team about how we're going to roll out, who's going to be involved first, what's going to be expected of them, when we're going to train them, and what we're going to train them about. And training, again, is more than obviously just user training and admin training. There's lots of flavors to user training, and there's an opportunity for us, whether you're deploying a new system or you've got an existing system, to go back and look at that training element to understand what's not working right. Maybe the system is designed properly, but we just don't know what people just don't know how to use it the right way. Developing sponsorship at the executive level is extremely important, but it's just as important, or I should say it's also important to make sure that we've got sponsorships at other levels as well. So whether that's super users or key user groups that we've gone out and are active in our process that are going to communicate with the rest of their team and help pull some of the responsibility back from the admin team. Producing job aids that we make available to folks, whether that's process flows or frequently asked question documents that we can make available to the team and take some of the responsibility back off the tech support group or the admin support group. And lastly, iterating. So I guess I'd ask you, is there anybody on this call who over the last 9 to 12 months hasn't, in their organization, had some sort of fairly significant shift, whether that's a new product strategy, new service strategy, new management team, new sales approach, sales methodology, territory alignment? Things are changing constantly, and there needs to be a constant change mentality in the organization to make sure that we are iterating back through our existing system on a regular basis in different areas to make sure that the system that we deployed originally is still meeting the needs of the team today.